Hey guys, welcome to Cigar Church, where our love, Hey guys, welcome to Cigar Church, where our passion for cigars and our love for Jesus come together. And we are still sitting here at Stag Lounge in Stillwater. And our man Joel was on our last episode last week. If you missed that, you got to go check that out. Mr. Joel from Stag. Mr. Joel was on there. And today, we've got a great episode. I'm worried, man. I'm worried. I got a little anxiety.
I'm not.
Building up over this.
I'm not. I feel good.
Why are we anxious and you're not? Tell us what's going on, Steve.
We're going to have a Guess the Cigar, Dan versus Clay.
Guess the Cigar.
I'm terrible. If you've watched this before, I'm terrible at this.
Well, you know what? I'm kind of feeling like I might be terrible at it too.
But you're very competitive, so it's in your head.
Yes, it is.
In your head.
I've been processing this. Here's what I'm scared of, and this is no knock on my man Dan. I've been smoking cigars a lot longer than Dan, and I'm just thinking I don't even know if I'm going to get this, man. I feel like I got to beat you though. I feel like just you know, out of the sheer need for the experience to outweigh. You won the ash contest.
I did.
And if you win this one,
you had the best ash.
Yeah.
And if you don't know this about me, I'm not a competitive type, which I think bothers people.
It bothers me.
Type. Yeah,
it bothers me.
Because if I win and I'm not competitive, it really bothers me.
Yeah, it's going to really bother me. But here's what's probably going to happen. I mean, I'd be surprised if one of us got it, but if both of us got it, how awesome would that be? That's the goal right here. That's the goal. We're both going to get it, all right? What's the rule, Steve?
I don't know. We didn't really have any rules.
We don't have any rules. You just got to guess what it is.
You can just come out with you think it's where the tobacco's from, the wrappers, different things.
And so you're going to be smoking the same cigar.
Yeah.
So we're going to let you guess at what it is before we get. Yeah. No. All right.
I know what it is. Right off the smell. I know what it is. Right off the smell, I guessed it.
So it is a Toro. No, it's a Gordo? Is that what this is? It's a little bit...
It's a Robusto.
That's not a Robusto.
Yeah, it's a Robusto.
That feels a little big for a Robusto.
Ask Mr. Joe.
He's way over there. I'm not going to bring him in.
Mr. Joe, what size cigar is that?
He can't tell from the bar.
He can tell. He's a trained professional.
He's coming in from the...
Come on. The man behind the curtain. It's a Robusto.
Is the Robusto? It feels a little big.
Thank you, Mr. Joe.
See, I'm already messing up. It feels a little big
you already
for
failed.
a Robusto. You know, I was smoking in the last episode, which was like 5 minutes ago for us, a pretty small cigar. So maybe that's it. So we got some Robusto here. It was purchased out of the humidor at Omerta. No, you're not going to give us that.
Not even going to give us that. So it could be anything.
It could be anything. So. I'm gonna get that cut on it. Are you straight cutting or are you?
I'm going to straight cut.
Straight cut. Okay.
I do know you.
I want to get a little more.
We have smoked this before. We were joking off camera that it was a Don Carlos, which would not be fair if it was. This will be hilarious if it's a Don Carlos, and I don't get it.
Yep.
But it wouldn't be fair to you.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
Right, because I don't smoke a lot of Don Carlos, although I have been slowly enjoying some of the Don Carloses. I just recently got the Eye of the Shark, and
oh yeah, that Eye of the Shark is
really good. That's a really good cigar.
All right, on that dry draw.
Yeah, that dry draw is nice, actually.
I'm getting some very familiar notes. Getting some very familiar notes. All right, let's light it up. Hit a little toast on it. I love that you're getting a kick out of this, Steve.
I must say I picked a good cigar.
Ooh, that's very familiar.
That's in my regular rotation.
Any guesses on what kind of tobacco it is right off the bat?
It's a Nicaraguan.
It's a Nicaraguan all day long. Yeah.
Interesting.
You might be trying to throw us off, aren't you? There's definitely Nicaraguan hints to it. If it's not Nicaraguan, it is.
If it's Nicaraguan, they're trying to make it Nicaraguan. Because it definitely has the flavor.
Get a pepper. a pepper spice.
I know
like
this.
a spice.
I know this cigar.
It's got the black pepper to it for sure. It is.
Kind of cinnamon.
I'm not getting that cinnamon.
I get cinnamon.
Well, that's a good cigar.
Yeah.
One way or
It's
another.
definitely- It's definitely good.
You gonna venture an early guess?
I'm trying to think.
Do we want to? I mean, we're talking about what kind of tobacco, and we both think it's Nicaraguan. He's like, interesting, which is either him trying to throw us off that we're wrong.
Right. No, I'm sticking with the Nicaraguan. I'll be honest with you. I will be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll be wrong, and that's fine.
That was if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just saying I'll be fine with that because this tastes like a Nicaraguan. I mean, it definitely tastes like a Nicaraguan.
Any particular factories or?
That's kind of what I was thinking. Let's kind of start to narrow it down. Like, we might eliminate a couple brands, or might go, okay, it's in my opinion, it's in this brand's catalog. You ready to try and hit that?
So,
Let's just say it's definitely not one of the lower end brands.
no.
It's not going to be a Punch. It's not going to be a Macanudo. It's not a Monte Cristo. It's not.
Well,
I think it's medium body, full body.
You know, I'm going to be honest. I've had a hard time. I mean, everything I smoke's heavy, a full body cigar.
I would say medium.
I'd say medium to full, but closer to medium. Just because it is.
This whole
just-
episode
it's
is
just
going to
not
be
got the
Steve
whole
going,
punch.
It's closer.
That's the name of this episode. Is Steve going? Interesting.
It's a strong cigar. I'll tell you that.
It's definitely not as strong as some of the ones I've smoked in the last couple of days. I'm getting.
It's considered if you go by the.
I'm getting strong hints of Bombay mahogany wood stain.
I wonder why.
That's an inside joke.
I wonder why.
We're at a shameless plug. We're building out the lounge. We're opening Cigar Church Lounge. As we're building it out, I've been doing a lot of wood staining, and I'm tasting everything tastes like wood stain these days. So that may be throwing me off a little bit. That's going to be my excuse if I lose, because every good competitive guy has to have that one reason why they lost, right?
You guess on the wrapper.
it's kind of dark.
I'm feeling some Honduran in here.
Oh, he's changing. He
Could be, well, no.
I'm getting some Honduran notes now that I've got through those first couple puffs.
Could. So I'm going to start venturing a guess here. I mean, not guessing the cigar, but I'm going to walk the tightrope a little bit. Could be Rojas. Just got some of that flavor.
You think it's a Rojas cigar?
Maybe. I know the cigar. It's just, and that's part of
Mr.
the
Joe?
problem when you smoke.
Did you see what cigar this is?
And you smoke more cigars than I do.
You did?
Yes.
You smoke more cigars than I do.
Yeah,
But-
which may hurt me in this.
Yeah, well, that's actually what I'm thinking, because we actually do smoke quite a few cigars, and over time, when you smoke something, it's like, okay, guess what that is? It's like you got to flip through that catalog.
Yeah.
And go, oh my god.
That's kind of what I'm trying to do right now. Is I'm thinking of cigars, and I'm weighing that against what I know about Steve. Because here's the deal: as much as this is us trying to guess the cigar,
It's him trying to
This is
sell
us also trying to read Steve.
Yeah.
And what would Steve
love playing
do
poker.
to us? This is his poker face right now. And I'm almost ready to make a guess.
Ooh.
I'm almost ready. I've got to get a few more draws in. And here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Steve went to something that the two of us haven't smoked in a while in his presence. I think he's going a little bit further back into our experience. Something that we've both talked about. And if it's the one I'm thinking, it's recently changed blends because it changed, the company changed locations on where they...
I hear where you're going.
you know, for me, and I'm sure it's not because I don't think the coloration's correct, but it does remind me of the Monte Cristo Nicaraguan series. It reminds me of that.
Yeah, I'm getting those hints, but
the color's wrong.
I think that's wrong. I don't think that's it.
No, I don't think it's it either. But it's similar.
Are you narrowing it down? You think you got an idea?
The other,
I think
See if it's on our chart.
the other side, and
I think I know. I've got a pretty good guess. I think. Are you going to give us multiple guesses, or do we just get one?
No, we'll work our way through it.
We'll work
'cause
our way through 'em?
You'll be wrong more than once. So
Oh, will I?
maybe.
Will I? He says. I mean, that's offensive. He's right, but it's a little offensive. Joel is standing off camera. He knows what they are. He's waiting to see what our guess is.
Give you one hint.
Now we don't want the hint.
No,
we
no,
don't.
not at all. You almost spoiled an episode. But one line without saying anything about the cigar. And you know what it is.
and I have a feeling I know which one you're talking about because when you said that, it put me on that track.
I think I get.
I know where you're wanting to go.
It's the Wise Men.
I like the guess.
The Wise Men.
It is not.
Really? I mean, it's been a minute since I've smoked one.
But there's a tie there. There's a tie in there.
All right, I think I know what it is.
What do you got?
This is. All right, I'm just going to throw it out there. I think it's the Judge.
No.
Wow, that was just a flat no.
So we both have
There is
a wrong guess.
It is not a My Father. I will go on record and say this is not a My
See,
Father
the
cigar.
problem is I don't smoke a lot of My Father.
Interesting.
And I haven't had
Is it a
Judge
My
in
Father
long
cigar?
time.
Interesting.
Oh, you punk! You punk! You're gonna do that. You're gonna do that.
I don't smoke a lot of My Father. Not a lot.
Mr. Joe is off camera smiling.
Don't copy.
How's your poker face, Joel? I'll just start naming
If
stuff
it's a
off
My
and see how
Father.
his face changes.
Interesting.
If it's a My Father, if it is, that changes my thoughts here.
You already established that it's not. You're on record saying it's not. So.
I was leaning way more towards Foundation and the Wise Men, so
It does look like a Wise Man.
it does look. It has some very similar. I mean, I guessed it for a reason. It really came across like a Wise Man. All right, I'm gonna pull a Dan real quick
Oh boy.
and get some light on it. 'Cause it's pretty dark. in
Yeah,
here.
it's dark, and it's dark in here, and
When you're ready for some hints, just let me know.
Why don't you throw one hint just for the sake of the people at home, so we're not boring
Our
them too
level
much.
one hint.
Give us a level one hint. I'm almost ready for a second guess, but go ahead.
I'll give it a hint.
You got it?
He's not mic'd up, so whatever you give us,
Oh,
you
no,
got to
no.
repeat. You got to repeat it. So go for it.
We talked about smoking in a prior episode with similar palates. That is one of your all-time favorite cigars. It's common ground. That's all I'm going to say.
That gives me two guesses. I got two guesses off of that,
One of them's right.
and they're and that is. It's not a Don Carlos. Don't give me that. There's no way that's a Don Carlos. You wouldn't have done that to us.
Oh, yeah, I would.
it might be Fuente though.
Interesting.
I ruled Don Carlos out from the very beginning just because I didn't think you would do that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be fair to Dan. So maybe I've shot myself in the foot by not thinking it's a Don Carlos.
Maybe my plan was to mess with you and not Dan. Maybe Dan's just a sacrificial lamb.
So in my top three favorite cigars, we're putting together our top 25.
Yeah.
My top three favorite cigars, and I'm going to watch Joel's face because he doesn't have a poker face. My top three favorite cigars: Don Carlos, La Bijou, and then number three. It's definitely not number three in that list, but the other one I was thinking of that I think you might be thinking of is the Los Delantilles, or the. So it's not that one. Watching his face.
Oh, I won't crack when I need to.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. Man, it's not fair that you're off screen for these guys. All right, I've guessed once. What do you got? What's your thoughts?
Oh my gosh. It could be Fuente.
I mean, that A5, it's not an A58, but it's the wrong size for an A58, but
Habano Rosado wrapper.
Habano Rosado.
Some people say Corojo, but of course you go to the.
That's not going to help me.
You go to the
That's not gonna
source.
help me.
I know.
I don't pay enough attention to the blends. Rosado.
I got other hints when you're ready.
Yeah, throw one out there.
All right,
Throw one
give
out
us
there,
a
just so
second.
we're not boring the people
These
back
poor
home.
guys.
Uh-oh, are you going to show us a wrapper? Show us a... Oh, it's the blue. It's the blue.
I just had one of these, I think.
Now, if somebody don't get this,
No, it's not that.
What do you think? That's the foot band, the blue foot band.
do you enjoy the cigar?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a great
good
cigar.
It's
It's a great cigar.
And, it's,
And I'm
it's
actually
familiar.
enjoying it because I don't know what it is. That's helping.
It's familiar. But I just
That is
smoked
classic
something
my
like
father
that.
right there.
But no, because you said it's not my father.
I know I did.
I'm
I
on
know I
record
did, but
saying
I'm saying this.
I'm on record saying it's not my.
I know, but this right here, my father's loves that, and so does EP Carrillo.
I was going to say,
There's a
an
few.
Epicurio's a possibility.
You saying I would use my EP Carrillo, huh?
La Historian E3.
Is that a guess?
That's a guess. That's an official guess.
Do you agree or disagree?
I was going to say the Pledge. Because I
No.
was going to go Carrillo.
Neither one of us? Neither one of us, huh?
Wow, that's irritating. Maybe I'm starting to get competitive.
You are. You're starting
Mr.
to.
Joe said it was one of your favorite cigars, so is the EP Carrillo
that's-
Lost a Story one of your favorite cigars?
It has been in the past. I mean, him and I have had conversations about it when it was in the top 25.
Mr. Joe? This was his other hint.
Hold on, let me see.
It's that blue foot band, the ribbon, which the EP Carrillo La Historian E3 had that. So I was kind of thinking that. I smoked one of those last night. Go for it.
You and I, when we first met, talked about infused cigars. Not an infused cigar, obviously. But we once said together that was the original infused cigar. It was the best cigar to go with coffee back in the day.
What?
If that doesn't give it away, I don't know what else to give you.
Which doesn't help me.
Man, you got a better memory than me, Joel.
I do my best.
But they don't have ribbons.
It's not infused,
No.
not at all. But it's the best cigar to go with coffee.
I wouldn't do that.
Could be an Espinosa. But I don't know of any Espinosas that have the blue ribbon.
No, I don't either. I don't either. You know, there is the My Father that is the Don Pepin,
I don't think I've ever had that one.
but just the look on your face is like, no, that's not it. And it's stronger than this cigar. Man, I'm stumped. I am really stumped here. And for the sake of time, I almost hate to ask him.
But
Are you ready to let him win?
because the blue ribbon bothers me because I've just smoked a cigar with a color ribbon like that, so I'm probably going to get really mad.
Yeah, I guarantee you I'm going to be upset when he tells us. You want to give us one more hint? One more really good hint?
A really good one?
Yeah, other than the actual band itself.
Well, there's multiple bands.
Okay, come on. What's your next hint?
It's Nicaraguan.
Okay, we're right.
100%.
We at least got that. Yeah.
No, you switch a little bit to
Because you
Honduran.
teasing us with it, but we started off both saying Nicaraguan right off the bat.
And then This ain't saying much, I guess, but it has been in the top 25 of cigar aficionados.
Okay, that's not saying much,
Yeah,
but
that's saying that's,
yeah,
Well, it takes out some.
it does.
not many. All right, what are we?
Is this too much of a hint here, Joel?
Pretty much. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good way. I mean, we got it. I mean, we've got to
Yeah,
know what it is. What do we got? Wait. One more guess. My father, Cuban Classic.
You said it's not my father. You're
I'm
on
back to-
record.
I mean,
You're on
you
record.
twisted my head all up, man. My father, Cuban Classic.
No. Well,
What do we got? What do we got? What are we smoking, brother? The original Don Pepin, Ami Garcia, right? That's it right there. That is it right there. The
And you
Don
smoked
Pepin
that
Garcia.
quite
I've smoked
often.
it, and you're right. You're right. It has been a long time.
We had that conversation
That-
10 times.
Yeah, yeah.
Good memory.
That's great. That's great.
That was a good one.
And that is one of my favorite cigars.
It is a good cigar.
And it's one of those cigars that I got burned out on for a long time. And you know what? I'm going to say this.
I think you're cured.
Steve, thank you. Because oftentimes, and you guys back home talk about this, we get stuck on a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
We fall in love with a cigar, and we go grab it, and we don't even think about the cigar anymore.
Yeah.
And we lose some of those notes. We lose some of those things that when you're just mindlessly smoking it. And I'm sitting here just paying attention to all the notes. I'm enjoying it. And that honestly did not even cross my mind as to what it might be. And it's kind of got me falling back in love with it.
it's a good cigar. It's a really good
such
cigar.
a wonderful cigar. That Don Pepin Garcia, man.
It's a good cigar.
I should have known that. I should have, and I didn't, and that hurts.
But how long has it been since you smoked one?
At least a month. I had some.
I remember you seeing one. You got
Maybe 3 weeks ago, but on a Wednesday night when we were doing our Bible study, I smoked one. But it was one of so many that day.
Yeah.
But just that was a good exercise, man, because to pay attention to those notes again was important, and going back to something old that I've appreciated in the past and forgotten about.
You know,
That's good. That's good. Thank you, Steve.
it's funny you say
Thank
that
you.
because I have a big Thompson 100 count humidor, and it is full. I thank God for that, to be honest with you. I don't smoke as often as you guys do, but and it's funny because I usually, when it's Wednesday night or it's time to pick cigars, I'm always picking off the top tray. And the other day I was like, oh, let me see, and lifting that top tray and seeing what's in the bottom, suddenly it's like, oh, I haven't smoked one of those in
yeah,
forever. Oh,
yeah.
I didn't even know I had that. And
Yep.
it's kind of cool to do that when you have a large stash of cigars, to go back through and try to dig out some of the ones that you forgot you even had.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool because a couple of weeks ago I'd pulled out some that was in the bottom, and it, like you're saying with this, it was a new experience.
Yeah.
I'd had the cigar before, but it was like, wow, I'd forgotten.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that cigar.
Yeah, and I'm remembering why I love this cigar. That's good, man. Thank you, man.
considered a strong cigar, but it doesn't smoke that
It
way.
doesn't smoke that way.
I would say
And-
medium full for
Yeah.
me.
Considered it full.
Now it
Yeah.
does have pepper. There's pepper, and that's
And if I remember right, one of the things I love about the Don Pepin Garcia is that last third. We've talked about how the first third smokes different than the middle third, and that last third you're going to get hammered with pepper. That's probably why it's considered a full body, is because of how that last third smokes.
I'm almost
and so yeah, we're about to get that heat right there, man. That's good. Steve, thank you, man. That was an awesome experience there.
Smoked them quite a bit. I didn't know. I knew Dan. I thought Dan.
I think I've smoked one. Yeah, I think I've smoked one. Not recently. It's not the one I smoked that I was saying.
From the get-go, that light, it was a familiar. I just couldn't place it. I couldn't place it.
For me, it's funny because for me, being Nicky D,
Picked up on
the
that.
Nicaraguan was like, well,
Yeah.
that's Nicaraguan. And now, But to be fair, the Don Carlos is a great example. The Opus X is another great example, one of my top cigars. It's Dominican, but their whole goal with those blends, with those Dominican blends, was to make it like a Nicaraguan. And they did a darn good job with it, even though it is Dominican tobacco. So, but that Nicaraguan flavor is just there.
And you picked up on that before I did. I was starting to get there, but I mean, you jumped on that before I did, and that was good. That was good. One thing I like about doing this, and just the realization of going back to an old cigar that I hadn't had in a while, it kind of ties into what we're doing. You look at you, man.
Imagine
look at you.
that.
This episode, Steve put together the whole thing, and the topic and everything, and so that this transition is really good because we're going to talk about something that a lot of people, I mean, this could be a really heated debate that we're going to address today, because there's this question, there's always out there, is what do you do with the Old Testament and the New Testament? And clearly we're under the covenant that was established by the acts that Jesus did as he came to the earth and was born a virgin, lived the sinless life, went to the cross, died on the cross for us, rose on the third day, and established the new covenant and the relationship that we have with him. We get oftentimes we get asked, what do you do with the Old Testament? What do you do with the Old Covenant? And we've got friends. We've got a dear friend of the channel that doesn't even like the idea of Old Covenant and New Covenant, and says, oh, it's just one covenant. It's an extension of that covenant. And so what do we do with that? Because there's some really key points that if you say, okay, the Old Covenant is no longer in effect, there's some freedoms that are then given, but if the Old Covenant is still in effect, there's some things that we have violated that we've got to be aware of. For example, it's very clear that we like tattoos on this channel. Two of us have very obvious tattoos, but all three of us are tattooed up. And so in the Old Covenant, there is prohibition against tattoos. There's also rules against eating pork and different things like that. I mean, I love my bacon cheeseburgers. I definitely enjoy my pork. And so if the Old Covenant is still the old rules are still in effect, then why do we have permission to do this? So we want to address that a little bit today on this episode. The first text that I want to look at, and as I had to do in the last episode, I got to put my readers on because I'm that age, that I want to look at is in Jeremiah, Jeremiah 31, verse 31 and following. And let me just give you a little context real quick before we jump into this. Jeremiah is in the Old Testament. Jeremiah is a prophet who is under the Old Covenant. He is a prophet that is under that Mosaic law, under the law that was given to the Israelite people with Moses in Exodus chapter 20 when we see the Ten Commandments and then the rest of those laws. Jeremiah is living under that covenant, and he says this. He says in verse 31, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant," not extend the covenant, not change the covenant, but I will make a new covenant, a brand new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Not like the covenant that I had made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, talking about that Mosaic covenant, that Mosaic law. But not the same as the one that when I took them out of the land, my covenant that they broke, though I was their husband, declares the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall each one teach his neighbor and each his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall be all known to me, or they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. I love this text. I love what Jeremiah is saying. While under that old covenant, that the day is coming that a new covenant will be established. Not just the old one will be extended, not just the old one will, obviously the old one is fulfilled in the person of Jesus, but a new covenant will be established. What are your thoughts on this idea of Jeremiah saying there's a day coming that the new will happen?
I mean, for me, I like when Jesus said, I didn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law. And I feel like that was the point, because when we go back all the way back to Genesis, and we see what Adam and Eve did, and us through as proxy, if you will, because we all do it constantly. The problem is that sin reigned, and when they took on the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they took on themselves the responsibility for their own righteousness.
Right.
And so at that point, the law was necessary, because at that point, God had to establish and say, okay, well, since you want this sovereignty over yourself, here's what you have to do. And it was this, it was the law, the 10 Commandments, and several other things that were added to it. And to me, the law was simply put in place for God to show and say, you cannot do this on your own. You,
absolutely,
in your sovereignty, you can't make it.
Yeah.
Is it Isaiah where he says your righteousness is as filthy rags?
Yeah.
I don't care how good you think you are, it won't measure up. You cannot measure up. And so when Jesus came, he didn't abolish the law, because the law was the law, but he fulfilled the law, taking us out from underneath, restoring something that he had given us in the Garden of Eden, to say, I will take this sovereignty back if you will give it to me. And that means we're not necessarily, because did Adam and Eve do things that they shouldn't do before they ate? Probably. But
they just didn't know.
But it wasn't, to them it wasn't wrong. There was no rebellion in it, because there was no moral code, if you will, ingrained in.
What I love about what you say there, Dan, is Jesus came, and the way that he fulfilled the law is by living under the law, sinless. He did what we couldn't do. He did what we couldn't do. And the law was given so that we may know what sin is, so that we may know what those transgressions are. And Jesus came to show us what it looks like not to sin, and to live under that law, and to prove to the fact that we are incapable of doing it, that he, as both fully God and fully man, was the only one who could do that, which made him, under the old law, the only one who could take our sin upon him. And why the power of the cross is so important is because if one of us died on the cross for all the sins of mankind, it wouldn't have meant anything, because we were sinful.
We weren't spotless.
And because he was that spotless lamb that was established through the old covenant, that old law, he was the one who was able to take all of our sin upon him. But what's beautiful about that, the night that he was arrested, we go to this text all the time, the Last Supper is what we call it. That night that he was arrested, he spent the Passover with his apostles, with the disciples, and he had the Passover meal with them, and he showed them through the meal all the things of that meal that pointed to him. And if you look at the Passover meal, the Seder meal as we call it now, everything in that meal, it represents the law, represents the things of the law, but how it all pointed to Jesus. And in the middle of the meal, he says something in Luke 22 that is beautiful. Luke 22 verse 20, and we're going to get to that in a second. But I want to address something that you said about he didn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. One of the big questions is when Scripture talks about that not a jot or tittle of the law will be done away with till everything is accomplished. Well, there's a couple different ways to look at that. Number one, Jesus on the cross said it is finished, and that is the accomplishment of the law. And at that point, of course, not a jot or tittle of the law will pass away till that's accomplished. The other the way to look at that is the idea that by the time the world ends, by the time Jesus comes back for the second time, that's when it's finished. So if the law stands till then, how do we justify living under a different covenant than the old? And it's simply this. I believe it's simply this, that it's like any other contract. When the terms of the contract are fulfilled, that contract doesn't go away, isn't erased, isn't put away, but it's fulfilled and it's no longer in effect. And so when Jesus fulfilled that for us, because we couldn't fulfill it, Jeremiah just said that we violated that contract. We broke the contract. We broke that covenant. That Jesus, when he fulfilled it, now it still stands, not as the covenant or the contract that we're under, but it still stands as a testimony to the faithfulness of God on his end of the covenant. What are your thoughts on that?
So in Galatians 5, I'll go back and read the one before. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other to keep you from doing the things you want to do. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. So here's the way I take it. And it's funny because you get the term sloppy agape.
I've never heard that.
You've never heard that one?
No, that's
where
fun.
It's like, okay, I'm under grace, so I can do whatever I want now. And it's like, but it's not. But you see, the difference from my perspective is that the law's not abolished. The law's the law, and the law's there for a reason. God didn't just sit on his throne with a piece of paper and go, what else can I put on these folks? The law is very, it's how you love people, it's how you love yourself, and it's how you love God. If you put those three things down there, the two greatest commandments that Jesus talked about, all the other stuff fits into that. Into that. But the difference is now I can live a full life without the understanding that, I've got to fulfill this or I'm going to hell.
Be perfect.
I now fulfill that through a relational stance. It's just like we're all three married. Not
to each other. We all are three married to women.
No, whoever.
The way he said that, I was just like, man, that was weird.
Whoever you are, that's not right. Anyway, but if we want to love our wives, we do things that they want us to do, like us to do. We love them the way that they want to be loved. Because we do that out of relationship, not because
we want to.
Right.
Not because we have to.
Not because we have to. It's not in some kind of weird contract where if I don't do that, well, I'm leaving today because you didn't pick up your socks off the floor. We want to do that because we want to please them, and it's the same thing. With God.
I love that you brought in the conversation that Jesus had with the teacher of the law that asked him what's the greatest commandment, and he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. But we miss it. I mean, a lot of people miss it, that he follows that up and says all of the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. And we think, okay, well, all of the law and the prophets have to do with loving God and loving others. No, the law and the prophets help us define what it means to love. We don't get the word love has been thrown around way too much in our society, and it's been cheapened. And when we say love now, we're not, that love word means something different than when we look at the law and the prophets. Those regulations and the way that they were interpreted and the way that the prophets interacted with the people and helped bring their hearts back to the law, that gives us the definition of how God defines love. When the scripture says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, I don't get to say, well, I'm loving God my way. No, we have to love God the way he expects us to love him. We have to love our neighbors the way that God expects us to love our neighbors. And I can say, well, I love them, and so I accept all the things they do, and I never, that's not the way that God loves. Love also brings correction. Love also brings holding accountability, all of those things. And so we have to define love by the terms of the law. That's how we understand love, and that's why the Old Covenant and the law is so vitally important, even under the New Covenant. We cannot understand what it means to be in the New Covenant without the definitions of the Old Covenant, and that's important. But the verse I referenced earlier, Luke 22:20, and let me get my readers back on here so I can see it. Luke 22:20, Jesus is at that Last Supper, and he's talking with his disciples, and he says, well, let me back up to verse 18. He says, and he took the bread, and he had given thanks, and he broke it and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, which has been given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. And then in verse 20, and likewise the cup, after they had eaten, saying, this cup is that is poured out for you is the new covenant of my blood. And so we have this moment where Jesus himself isn't saying this cup is my blood being poured out to extend the covenant to you. It's not him saying that to continuate or to give a continuation of the old covenant. He says this is an establishment of something new, and every covenant is established with blood.
Right.
And so Jesus is saying, my blood being shed for you is establishing the new covenant, the new relationship we have with each other. And it's for me, it's hard. I mean, it's one thing to say, well, here's how I read it, here's how I understand it. But when Jesus says something, I mean, those words carry a little bit more weight.
Absolutely.
And we can all day long say, well, he meant this by saying new. No, well, it's a new covenant. It's a different covenant. It's something more. And it is built on the faithfulness of the previous covenant. It is, I mean, the new covenant doesn't stand without the old covenant being fulfilled. And Jesus himself is saying, I am building this new covenant through what I'm doing on the cross. Other thoughts?
So it's safe to say, due to the accepting Jesus and having a relationship with Jesus and the Holy Spirit, it leads us to make us want, like he was saying, make us kind of want to follow some of those laws, not because we have to.
Absolutely, yeah.
The mindset,
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit, we're working us in that direction. That
Yeah.
that's what,
Well, it puts me into mind. I was looking up that scripture, Romans 2:15, where Paul said they show that the work of the law was written on their hearts, while the conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse and even execute them. He's talking about the law written on the hearts of man, and it's a difference because the old law was written on stone.
Yeah.
The old law was written so that everybody could see, but when you have a relationship with Christ, the law gets written on your heart because those are the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
Not that you suddenly have the ability to do everything right, but you want to.
Yeah.
You know, there's a different motivator. You know, this is what I want to do. So.
Yeah, and you know, we see in the book of Acts, the one thing I love about the book of Acts is it's a messy book. Those new Christians, there's so much that they understand and have gotten right, but there's even disagreements between the apostles and disciples. I mean, the most famous is when Paul and Barnabas split ways, but you get to the book of, or the 15th chapter of the book of Acts, and there's this debate between Paul and the original disciples that what do we do with these Gentiles? Do we expect them to be circumcised? Do we expect them to fall under the new law or the old law and obey all of the things? And they come to this conclusion, and I think this is the conclusion we need to come to moving forward is those who are coming to Christ outside of the Jewish faith, that didn't know the Jewish faith, didn't follow the Jewish laws, that weren't a part of all of that, as they come to know Christ, it is not fair to burden them with all the regulations of the old covenant. And they say, look, here's what we want to hold them to. We expect them not to do things that were dedicated to idols, not eat the meat dedicated to idols, not drink blood, you know, those types of things. But then also he says, you know, and we're going to hold a standard of sexual morality. We don't want them to participate in sexually immoral things. And above that, Jesus. And so the disciples that sat at this table come to the conclusion that when a Gentile comes in, when somebody who's not a Jew comes in and is part of this new covenant, we're not going to expect them to hold to that old covenant. Right. And if that's what the disciples decided, then that still applies to us. That for me, moving forward, that's the rule. So when we look at things like, well, can a Christian have bacon? Well, of course. Can a Christian have tattoos or this or that? There are a number of those laws and regulations that Jesus reestablished in the New Testament, and there's a bunch that he didn't. Those ones that he reestablished, those are the ones we follow. That's because that's part of that new covenant. Any final thoughts on old versus new?
I think we said it.
We said it, yeah. How's that Don, Pep, and Garcia doing, you guys?
Okay. I'm going to say something.
Say it.
I think if you had gotten down to the last third, you would have figured it out.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
what
hitting
you
it
said,
right now.
What you said about the pepper was right there. I mean, it was in your face and it was roaring.
Yeah, it's hitting right now. That's an old friend coming back to visit right there. and I'm enjoying that. Steve, thank you, man, for doing that for us, and just providing just a good memory to come back to. Wonderful cigar. Are you enjoying it? Is that going to be part of your rotation now?
You know, it probably will be. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, good deal.
It's a good Nicaragua.
My father's. I shouldn't have wrote it off so quickly, because that's definitely what it is. Great cigar, great conversation, guys. In the comments below, give us your opinion on this matter. Let us know what you think about the old covenant versus the new covenant. And we've got one good friend of the show that we know is going to chime in on this one, and we love that conversation and debate with him. And so we look forward to hearing that conversation. So drop a comment, let us know what you think. And as always, we've got a few things we'd like to cover at the end of the episode.
Hey, if you like our videos, like and share it, and subscribe, and tickle the bell icon to be notified when new videos drop.
As always, you got any prayer requests, email us at contactcigarchurch@gmail.com or stevecigarchurch@gmail.com.
You know what? I'm going to throw something out here. I didn't think I was going to say this. I'm going to throw it out there.
Throw it.
I'm gonna dry beg for some cigars. You ready for this? If you want to do a name that cigar, guess that cigar, and you want to send us 3 cigars, take the bands off of them, send them to us, and reach out to us, because what we would like to do is be able to guess them and know them on the show. And so if you want to send those cigars with the bands in a sealed envelope, whoever our guest is that day, we'll give them that sealed envelope so they can reveal it at the end of the episode. But if you want to try and trick us, if you want to try and stump us and send us some cigars, reach out to us. You can send it to the Steve email address to get an address to mail the cigars to. And we would love to do that. We would love to see if we can guess what cigar you send us. I think that would be really fun to do regularly on here. And it'd save our budget a little bit, because we're smoking a lot of cigars for these episodes. So send us a cigar too, and see if we can guess what it is, and we'd love to do that. But as always, guys, smoke a fine cigar to the glory of God. We will see you next week.